So hello everybody, my name is Jeff Whitfield and I am another Democratic candidate for Texas House District 92. Let me first thank all of you for being here tonight. I've spent a lifetime fighting bullies, I've spent a lifetime solving problems, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but every time I tackle an issue, I oftentimes think to myself, what is this about? Why are we doing this? And I look around the room and I know why we are all here, right? I mean, I understand what separates Democrats from Republicans. The reason that we are Democrats is that we think first about humanity. We think about our fellow person and we approach the world from a perspective of love. We don't look at somebody else and we don't think of them as the other. We think of them as somebody that we have a shared experience with. And we are fighting against people who have an entirely different perspective on this process. And we have to remember that because it means when you're going to battle, you have to understand what you're up against. But you know what? We are fighting for something that matters so much more than what they're fighting for. They're fighting for tax breaks. They're fighting to put a little bit extra money and maybe another yacht in their inventory. We're fighting for our loved ones. We're fighting for our neighbors. And we're fighting to save the very heart of what it means to be an American, the reason that this country was formed. Those things that we talk about as American values. That is, e pluribus unum. Out of many, one. We are together in this, right? So I came to understand this from, it sounds a little bit like your own family story. I grew up right here in the mid-cities, the son of a hairdresser. My mom cut hair for 30 years right here in HEB. And my dad was a factory worker. And when manufacturing shut down across the country, we had to move from Abilene to here to try to find work. Had it not been for the public education system in this community, I'm a product of Whitfield schools. Had it not been for the extraordinary teachers who helped me find a future, I would not have been able to do anything that I've done in my life. Public education is the great equalizer. And not only is it just the flat out right thing to do, it's our constitutional responsibility, and it's the first step to making this country the great country that we all are, we're determined to make it. Absolutely. So my own journey from growing up here in Whitfield schools and having been inspired to do everything that I could to serve my community, it led me then to serve in the military. And I think about so many people that we think about how are we going to serve. I gave an opportunity to go to the United States Air Force Academy to serve as an Air Force officer. And I realized that when I went to the Air Force Academy, I thought it was the time of the Cold War. Everybody remember Top Gun, Iron Eagle, these are the jingoistic things that were in our culture. Ronald Reagan saying, tear down this wall. And we were told that the communist empire was the great enemy, that every single person in that other country was our enemy. And I was prepared to go and train and fight a war against the communists. Well, then we had a foreign exchange student from Yugoslavia. And I realized that his parents were members of the Communist Party because they had to get a job. And he had a sibling about the same age as me. And I thought to myself, as this immature 17-year-old kid right here in the mid-cities, what am I being fed? The world is not made up of our enemies. The world is made up of our potential friends, just like our communities are. So again, that lesson always pounded back into my head. We have to stand together. We have to seek empathy. But I went to the military academy and I trained to be a warrior and I learned military strategy and I was honored to serve our country in uniform. And that education then continued to lead on to other opportunities. After I was a military officer, when I was working in the Air Force on the issues that faced us at that time, I was then given an opportunity to be a Fulbright Scholar and a World Peace Fellow. And leaving the military, I went and worked on issues of peace. I moved from the United States to England, and I had a chance to study with the former Foreign Secretary of England, the man who had tried to negotiate an end to the conflict in the Balkans. And I learned from him about what it was like when people, neighbors, Serbians and Muslims, the Bosnians, there were murders and there were genocides and it was a horrible thing, all because someone had demonized another group. And it taught me that this is what can happen when tribalism and these kind of tensions are pushed to their maximum. So that study, that opportunity there, taught me that perhaps I could use something like the law to do all that I could to try to preserve order in a system. Right now we have a real threat to our rule of law in America. We have a president who doesn't respect the law. We have, even in Austin, we have elected officials who don't respect the law. We have to fight to preserve the rule of law. I've sworn twice in my life to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, once as a military officer and once as an attorney. And all of us have a duty to fight to protect the rule of law.